Greetings. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on BlazeTV, radio and podcast, alongside Todd Erzin and Aaron McIntyre. I am Steve Deace, and we are brought to you by our good friends over at First Cup Coffee Company. They have a flavor for every freedom-loving American. So number one, if you want to get some great coffee, and then number two, as an added bonus, as a value added, get it from a company that has the same value system that you do. It just tastes better than the communist coffee. Go to firstcup.com, use the promo code DACE to get 10% off. That's firstcup.com, promo code DACE to get 10% off. And if you subscribe, you'll get 10% off for the life of your subscription as well at firstcup.com, promo code DACE. Coming up later today in the overtime, getting a jump start on Pride Month. Gird your loins. Turns out nature is gay. Who knew, right?
Big Ten.
That's... I have to say, by the way, I know most of our audience is not on Twitter, but your tweet yesterday in response to Eddie Vedder of Pearl Jam coming at Harrison Butker, just the simplicity of it.
It seemed obvious. I don't think I was clever.
Jeremy spoken class today. Okay? That was great.
It seemed like low-hanging fruit.
It was actually, it was actually white power. Okay, but no, it was just excellent. Okay.
Media Matters on it.
Yes, thank you.
I didn't understand it at all.
You didn't understand it at all? No. Clearly I remember picking on the boy. Seemed a harmless little, but we unleashed the lion. Gnash his teeth in with the recessed lady's breast. How could I forget? I didn't forget. Did you forget?
I did not.
You see something like that, you're not going to forget.
Correct.
Clearly, yes. All right, so it doesn't have anything to do with anything else going on in the show today, but I needed to give you some props on air for that because that was a tremendous poll that was very well done.
I have some moments.
You do. And they're not always on Fridays. Usually they are, but not always on Fridays because yesterday was Monday, correct? So well done. But coming up in the overtime today, we are going to discuss the push now to queer nature. And that's a good reminder, if you are not yet a BlazeTV subscriber and you want to get some of the best stuff we do here on the network that is completely and totally free of big tech censorship, now is a great time to subscribe. You also get our Blaze Originals, so much great work we've done there. The great work of our colleague and friend Steve Baker on what he has done with January 6th that is good because it's put him strictly in the crosshairs of the Department of Injustice. So now is a great time. You'll get every overtime we do, everybody else does, all that exclusive content. If you go to blazetv.com, use the code Steve, you'll get $20 off your annual subscription today. blazetv.com, use the code Steve to get $20 off your annual subscription, and you'll be able to watch today's overtime and find out what we think about queering nature. Although you could probably guess, but we'll do our best to live up or down to your expectations nevertheless. All right, coming up on today's show at the bottom of the hour, old friend of the show, Meg Brock returns. She's been doing some investigative work for the Daily Caller, and she's going to be on the program to tell us about that. Next hour for Idolatry or Not. I have to tell you, I don't even know what is satire anymore. I don't. Because the Babylon Bee put together they're going to say it's a parody of a meeting, but I'm not kidding you. I could literally see this taking place exactly as it goes down in this video. And it says you know that scene in Nefarious when, quoting right out of the book, when Nefarious says, hate speech, we didn't even come up with that one. Yeah. You guys did that all yourself. Sometimes you amaze even us, right?
Yeah.
There's a moment like that in this parody. And sometimes I get asked, hey, Steve, is everything evil we're seeing demonic? Or Steve, is everything evil we're seeing just a result of human nature and we're under a Romans 1 judgment? And of course, the answer to those questions is yes. And this Babylon Bee parody depicts that, I think, perfectly. All right, I did it again. White power. All right, so we're going to stop channeling Dave Chappelle and do the Babylon Bee video coming up next hour instead. All right, and then for Pop Culture Tuesday, what I find fascinating about the ongoing fallout with Harrison Butker and his comments. By the way, I have a column up today at The Blaze about that, so you don't want to miss that over at theblaze.com. But in many respects, this is a gift. This entire fight is an election year gift to the Republican Party. Now, I am confident it is not one they will accept. I am fair. I mean,
they hate their gifts.
Yeah, yes,
they don't want
because they hate their base. Yeah, so I'm not even going to say I'm not even going to do that because Todd will shoot me. All right, I am confident said gift will not be accepted, but it is a gift, and I will explain why and get Todd and Aaron's take on that coming up on Pop Culture Tuesday here towards the end of the show. But with all that in mind, let us begin as we always do with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by Resting or Not. After what by most reports indicated was an extremely brutal cross-examination of former Trump attorney, fixer, and star witness Michael Cohen in the Trump Stormy Daniels hush money case in New York, the defense has rested. The trial, which is drawing to a close, will determine whether Trump falsified business records over payments facilitated by Cohen to former adult film star Stormy Daniels to keep an alleged affair secret before the 2016 election, as alleged in a criminal indictment by Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's office. An optimistic Trump spoke to the media after the final day of testimony.
And we'll be resting pretty quickly. Resting meaning resting the case. I won't be resting. I don't rest. I like to rest sometimes, but I don't get to rest.
Another dementia update. Here's Joe Biden on something I think having to do with Hamas and hostages.
My administration is working around the clock to free the remaining hostages, just as we have freed hostages already. And here today is Hirsch Goldberg Poland, and it's still... He is not here with us, but he's still being held by Hamas.
Christian teacher in California has settled with her school district after she was fired for holding fast to her Christian beliefs about gender and sexuality. Jessica Tapia previously taught gym and served in other roles for nearly 10 years at the Europa Unified School District, but received a notice of unprofessional conduct back in 2022. The notice accused Tapia of, quote, posting offensive content on her public Instagram account, referencing her faith during conversations with students and expressing controversial opinions on issues pertaining to gender identity. To remedy her so-called misconduct, the district asked Tapia to essentially participate in a struggle session wherein she would be required by the district to make herself complicit in the district's policies regarding gender and sexuality. For instance, the district considers a refusal to address a student by name and the pronouns consistent with the student's gender identity as harassment. Exclusion of males from girls' bathrooms or from participating in girls' activities also qualifies as harassment. Tapia asked for accommodation but was denied and was then fired. Now she's settled with the Europa Unified School District out of court after filing a lawsuit. Tapia will receive $285,000 from the district as well as $75,000 for her attorney's fees. Louisiana is poised to become the first state requiring display of the Ten Commandments at all schools that receive public funding, including colleges and universities. The new bill requires the text of the Ten Commandments to be printed on a poster no smaller than 11 by 14 inches, and that the words be the central focus of the document. A group of civil rights organizations, including the ACLU, Americans United for Separation of Church and State, and the Southern Poverty Law Center, issued a joint statement opposing the legislation. According to the online publication Redux, Germany's parliament has received the votes necessary to remove a section of the criminal code which made the possession of child sexual abuse materials, see that as child pornography, a felony crime. Once the bill passed last week comes into effect, minimum sentences for the possession of child pornography will be reduced, and the offense will be downgraded to a misdemeanor. A new study from the University of New Mexico has found carcinogenic microplastics in the testes of all the testes of men it examined. The research team found that the most prevalent of the 12 different types of microplastics was a polymer material, polyethylene, used in plastic bags and bottles.
Next on the Violence Channel, an all-new Alma Balls.
And finally, for something completely different, are senior pranks making a comeback? A group of graduating seniors at Richwoods High School in Peoria, Illinois, hired a bagpiper to follow their principal around for 1 hour straight. And that's what happened while we were away.
Has anybody Anybody seen Lindsey Graham's reaction to the microplastics in testicle story?
I have not.
No?
Please don't show it to us.
Seems like he might be one of the hardest hit. No? Is this on? Aaron's montage. We are moving on. Aaron's montage is brought to you by our friends over at Backyard Butchers. Speaking of meat, they've got the best. No, really, it's pretty good. It really is.
Trying to move product here, Deace.
No, I mean, it is absolutely really good. I mean, I'm not kidding you.
Email coming, just read the script.
Aaron, just when that email comes in later today, just send it to me. Don't even read it. Just forward it over. Okay. Yep.
That's what I usually do.
Okay, thanks. Grass finished and grass fed and grain finished. All right, listen. Everyone's going to remember this Backyard Butchers ad. Isn't that what everybody wants? Everybody's going to remember this live read. You want people to remember your product. They're going to remember.
Well, we started the show talking about Nature's over here, stage left, saying, hey,
Indeed.
I'm quite a homosexual myself.
That is still my favorite Pride Month gif every year from Spider-Man, the original one. Anyway, BackyardButchers.com is delivering American-raised and harvested meat from right here in American backyards, from American ranches and farms directly to your dinner tables. And I tasted the difference myself. We had our first family cookout for family dinner on Sunday a few weeks ago, and we didn't quite have enough Backyard Butchers burgers for everybody, so I went to the store to supplement it, and I made myself half of one and half of the other just to see what it was going to taste like. And man, the difference was noticeable. The meat from Backyard Butchers was way better. So if you want to put them to the test yourself, easy for me to say, go to backyardbutchers.com/Deace. Find out why they've got over 500,000 happy customers across the country and so many 5-star reviews online. Backyardbutchers.com/Deace. You'll save 20% off your first entire order. And then if you subscribe, you'll get an additional 10% off and free shipping as well. Backyardbutchers.com/Deace to save 20% off your first order. Backyardbutchers.com/Deace. All right, to Aaron's montage we go. I know I said before the show I didn't think I'd have a take on the top two items, but a couple of quick things I need to address. Did anybody understand a word of what Joe Biden said in that clip?
It's a very high bar or low, depending on how you look at it, for Joe Biden to do the worst of something he's done. But I don't remember it being a combination of just butchering reality, where talking about a guy who's a hostage was there and then not being able to understand anything. That was insane. He's the president of the United States, guys.
And it's clearly, you reach that age. I think we've talked before. We watched Joe Paterno coach into his 60s, 70s, highly successful, and he looked much younger. And then all of a sudden, it just, like, he aged in the last 2 years. He aged 20 years the last 2 years, right?
Yes.
Okay. And is the rate of this accelerating, or is it just me?
Well, I don't know. We've been talking about this.
I mean, we've been talking about it since the 2020
years.
primary.
Yeah.
We were noticing during the 2019 Democrat primary debates, there was clearly mental decline. We were talking about it then. I think we were among the first to probably bring it up at that time. Even looking at clips of what he looked like debating Paul Ryan in 2016, and it was clear he had lost his fastball. But we're at the point now. I mean, this is zombie-like. I mean, this is one step from. Let me put it this way. You know what? Let's do it this way, because this is vitally important. We're only talking about national security and the figurehead leader of the free world here, right? Regardless of what you think about him, that is the position he currently holds, correct?
Yeah.
All right. And so, Daniel has a theory. He'll talk more with us about this tomorrow when he's on the show. He has a theory that, because you look at the polls that show the Democrats winning like every meaningful Senate seat. But like Arizona, one example. Like Kari Lake's going to lose by double digits to Ruben Gallego, but Trump's going to win by 5 points. And Daniel's theory is that's a lot of Democratic voters who are basically, because it's May and they don't have to vote yet, saying, guys, come on. They're basically having the talk that Bill Maher is having this morning on The View. Listen, we're all liberal. We're all left-wing pukes here. That's basically what Bill Maher is telling The View this morning. Let's be honest. We're all left-wing pukes here. This guy's a cadaver, and we can't have that. So we got to put somebody else in there. And that explains this dichotomy where in one state, Kari Lake's getting obliterated and Donald Trump's winning going away, a state he supposedly lost anyway. and then the question becomes, if he stays on the ballot, what do those Democratic voters do come November? Or do they still withhold their vote and say we can't do this? Or is this basically a cry for help to the Democratic Party? You have to take him off the ballot. This is just not sustainable on any level whatsoever. I'm fascinated by his theory. Again, it's his theory, so we'll talk to him more about it tomorrow. But just something he's been expressing to me privately. I've had a quick take on that.
Some of the voters may be worried, but the party isn't. The party sees this as a win-win-win. With a dementia patient, they get to boss him around and make him do whatever he wants to, and he's happy to do it. Okay, if suddenly things...
Let's face it, he doesn't know what he's doing.
And they love this.
If you had a loved one, Todd, and we all have, by the way, especially if you're our age or older.
The party doesn't care.
If you had a loved one and this was not his position, and you called him on the phone, and it was the same age, and he picked up the phone and he sounded like this, what would you think?
Well, I know, but his loved one is Jill Biden, and she's part of this process too. So it's a win-win-win. If he's in there, they do what they've done the last 4 years, and he's happy to do it. If suddenly this thing, he totally just glitches and strokes, they're happy to pivot to whatever's next and try that. And if they lose and Trump actually becomes president, honestly, Republicans should be more scared of that than the Democrats, because the Democrats we burnt things down so bad, nobody can really fix it. We're going to keep burning it down. That's what we're dealing with.
Aaron, you have a quick take on this since you put it in the montage.
Yeah, it's getting worse, but again, we've had this conversation over and over and over again. It's been getting worse for the last 5 years or so. Basically, anything short of what you've stipulated before, and I'm even dubious that going all and that's why the aliens probed me live in front of 30, 50, 70 million people on live television. I'm dubious even that would have much of an impact whatsoever. Having said all of that, did you see Polymarket again this morning? Now Donald Trump's up with almost 10 points in the betting. I don't understand.
Did they all watch that clip?
I don't understand what's going on here. I don't think anybody really does.
All right, on the Trump trial, it looks like that's going to the jury here soon. I don't believe he was ever going to testify. I think, frankly, he just had that leaked out over the weekend to make it look like he thought about it. I think Trump lies all the time, and people lie about and for him. I just think the whole thing is surrounded by lies, like almost constantly. So I almost believe nothing he says or anybody says about him or for him, frankly. All right, but should he have taken the stand? His defense is rested, so he's not going to.
Hell to the no.
Hell to the no?
I don't. Probably for the same reasons why, him debating, MSNBC and CNN are, not a good track record on this front.
It's a tough call. I mean, he's the best advocate for himself. No question about that. On the other hand, well, if you look, he
lost to the Joe Biden we just got done talking about.
He did, but he also has, don't put me in a position of defending Donald Trump. Dude's a billionaire. Most famous person in the world, and got elected president of the United States. Okay. We're doing a 2-hour show on the Blaze. So let's recognize a little bit of, I know what you're saying. I get it. But let's also have a little self-awareness on our own end here that he can also be his worst enemy. We've seen evidence of that too. You're right. But by and large, he's been the best. To the point, dude was his own PR agent, John Barron, at one point. Okay. So,
I think what he's doing in that clip when he constantly comes on afterwards, talks, gets threatened by a judge. The judge doesn't do anything about it. That's way better than him going on the stand.
That's a good point, too. Okay. Because I could see it both ways. It's so... The Michael Cohen testimony apparently went so bad, even CNN's legal analyst, or from what I've seen at the gym, are even admitting that, So at that point, maybe you're thinking, we'll just take our chances. On the other hand, I just kind of like having control over my own fate.
That's the point.
You know what I'm saying?
Trump controls all of the optics of going on afterwards, what I'm going to say, when I'm going to say it, how long I'm going to say it.
So you think he already does is what you're saying. Okay.
But if he goes, he doesn't control anything if he's on the stand.
That's a great point. All right. You changed my mind. Okay. That's well said. Okay. And I also think regardless of what the jury comes back, like literally no one cares. So let's go to the final two items in Aaron's montage, which I think frankly are far more meaningful. If you've been a believer for all of, say, 10 minutes, at some point, someone has said something like this to you. I can't believe you're loving God with 10 people to hell. Okay. Don't ever entertain that. Don't ever grant that premise. Don't ever struggle with that on your own. What you should be struggling with is how you achieved grace you didn't deserve. That's what it means to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. You should be struggling the other way. You should be like, therefore, by the grace of God go I. I mean, what a wretch am I? I didn't deserve this. That should be your struggle. Like, how in the world would I ever possibly honor this enough? I mean, what does offer my body up as a living sacrifice look like? I mean, what would how do I not waste this so I hear well done, good and faithful servant at the end? That's your struggle the other way. The struggle is not how to entertain that question. Just look at that person and say, ever read you don't say a newspaper anymore, but you would have said 20 years ago, you read the front page of a newspaper for 5 minutes before? We would have said 10 years ago, hey, you ever read the front page of Drudge for 10 minutes? You ever done that once? Now you're just like, you ever seen what's trending online for 3 minutes? Did you guys see the story last night about the pastor and the pastor's wife? And she's an active porn star, cam model. But here's the rest of the story, Paul Harvey. The husband pastor just pled guilty a couple days ago to raping his sister when she was 9 years old. No. Do not struggle with why there is a hell. Instead, rejoice there's one. I said it. Rejoice. When you see a nation like Germany, which clearly is just hell-bent on never learning any lessons of history ever. Fair?
Fair.
I mean, it's just, if there was any nation, by the way, that you would think would just go so far the other way into total piety, we're just building monasteries. We're walking around with bowl haircuts in sackcloth and ash for the next 700 years, okay? Rejecting all modernity and putting our heads in dirt. If there was ever a country that would go so far the other way, okay, as to turn piety into an idol, should it not be them?
It should.
If human nature was fundamentally good, as Pope Pelagius said yesterday, if the heart was basically, if humans had basically had good hearts, as Pope Pelagius said yesterday, then what a good heart would do is like, how do I pay reparations to every Jew who ever lived? That's what you would do. You would take your piety and shame to idolatrous levels and go the other way with it.
One might think.
Like you'd never accept forgiveness for it. You'd be like, I can't ever make up for this. I can't ever. They never learn.
Because John Daniel Davison was right. That point you said,
correct.
We just become evil.
Correct.
Pagan America.
What will be left of the West or America after it's fully post-Christian, which is what it is now. And by the way, that line right there, no one has said, including myself, no one has said anything on this show that has stuck with me more so far in the year 2024 than when John Daniel Davidson said this on this show about a month ago. What'll happen next? Because, we've been debating what happens, revival or bust, and what does bust look like? Is it like the Dark Ages? He's like, oh no, we're not going to go anywhere. We're just going to become evil. I mean, that just blew my mind. I didn't even have that. Steve Deace didn't, the wannabe weeping prophet, didn't even have that on my...
Do you even total depravity, bro?
Apparently I don't. Okay?
Which it should have been obvious how many times have we come in either off the air or sometimes on the air, and whether it's foreign policy, most of the time it is foreign policy, and just said to ourselves, are we the baddies, channeling whatever movie that's from?
Yes.
That should have been obvious to us, but
it was just kind of dangling there, and he crystallized it for us. And I mean, it stopped me dead in my tracks, man. And it has radicalized my thinking on some of this in the last week or month since we had him on. This is an example. Just state-sanctioned pedophilia. I mean, if previous errors were willing to take their live children and throw them into the volcano and into the fire to Molech, I mean, Islamic Bedouin cultures have had state-sanctioned pederasty from the beginning. It was rampant throughout Greco-Roman culture at the time the church was emerging. So why not? This is just, just another step down that cavalcade of whimsy. But that also proves we're not basically good. If any nation should learn from past mistakes, it would be theirs. Instead, Germany just marches on, man. Continues on.
That's fleshed out in this story about the teacher, too. I'm glad individually she gets a settlement out of this. Mm-hmm. But all the time this went... Remember this. This is a public school. This is why they do this. Are any of the administrators going to get fired? Almost certainly no. They're playing with house money. It's not their money. It's your money. So now everybody else in this lawsuit, the only people that get punished are the people. And you are probably going to go on bleeding like sheep and just say, like with COVID, like with almost everything else, mistakes were made.
Mm-hmm. Which brings me to posting the 10 Commandments in Louisiana. I remember as a baby Christian, I haven't told this story in several years, but I've told it before. Maybe if you're a long-time listener, you've heard it before. I'm driving in to do my show one day, and I'm listening to Adrian Rogers, the late, great Adrian Rogers. And it was I am a baby Christian. This is during the 10 Commandments fight in the Alabama Supreme Court with Judge Roy Moore.
Yeah.
And the whole big fight about that on the right, whether we should post these or not. And the Bush administration, by the way, was coming against Roy Moore to get him to get rid of the 10 Commandments. The Bush administration does, with our evangelical president, of course. Before we had the devout Catholic president, we had the devout evangelical president who didn't want the 10 Commandments posted in any buildings. Okay. So I'm listening to Adrian Rogers, and he's like breathing fire on this issue, but then he does this pivot, man. He goes, hey, by the way, I'm just wondering, all y'all in this room here this Sunday that are all fired up about this as I am, how many of y'all got the 10 Commandments posted in your own home? And man, I turned that off, jumped on my cell phone driving into work. I called Amy up at home. I said, I don't know, we got to get the 10 Commandments. I mean, because that was so convicting to me. I'm all worked up. I'm all fired up about it. I don't even have them in my own home. Okay? But here's the thing to remember, though. I'm all for posting these things. I'm even more for promoting these things. When Amy and I were this close to blowing our entire family up, we still had the 10 Commandments posted in our home. Sure, see what I'm saying here? Okay? You have to understand, it's not the posting of the 10 Commandments in the home or in the schools that will make this, or the government buildings, that will make a people righteous. Rather, a righteous people will post the 10 Commandments in the public realm as a testimony to what it is they are holding themselves righteously accountable to. It is from the inside out, not the outside in. So if nothing is done to promote these things, but this is just a battle over branding and signs, that is sound and fury signifying nothing. So I would say if you're in Louisiana or anywhere else and you want to do this, I am for it. But make sure you're actually for it. If you're posting them nostalgically, well, past eras had these hanging in buildings and they were better than us. That's not how this works. And we can turn even a memorial to the 10 Commandments into an idol. Because the Sabbath was not made for man, but man for the Sabbath. So it's not just about posting them, but the posting of them needs to be a step to promoting them. Any thoughts on that before we sign off for the segment?
That has a lot to do with last Theology Thursday, conforming to a standard. Faith without works is dead. There's get busy living or get busy dying.
Exactly. And one of the reasons why you have to remember there is a hell is because there are far too many people who are all for the accoutrements, the aesthetic of what the 10 Commandments is about, and not actually the 10 Commandments themselves. It's only a win in as much as those ideas, those principles, and those commandments are followed.
Correct. More in a moment. folks, our friends over at Eden Pure are having their famous BOGO deal on Thunderstorm air purifiers. When you buy one Thunderstorm, you get one for free. No matter how many you buy, you get an equal amount for free. So in the past, if you've been like, hey, that 3-pack sounds great, but I wish there was a fourth because I want to have one in the garage or I want to have one at my office. Well, now you can. Buy 2, you'll get 2 free. You can't beat it. Remember, they're filterless. You'll never be replacing the filters out of pocket or out of your own time. There's a reason why they've got thousands of 5-star reviews and so many rave reviews from within our audience since we started partnering with them a couple of years ago. Find out for yourself. Remember, it's not a freshener, it's a purifier. So go to EdenPureDeals.com. Use the discount code SteveBogo for buy one, get one. All right. Steve Bogo is the discount code at EdenPureDeals.com. Steve Bogo at EdenPureDeals.com. Let's bring back an old friend of the program. Meg Brock is here with us on the Steve Deace Show. Meg, it's good to see you again. How you been?
Good. I'm good. Thank you so much for having me back. You
bet. First of all, congrats on getting a chance to do some work with the Daily Caller. That is one of the venerable OG names in our industry. So that's very cool. So congrats for that.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's been great. Thank you.
And it's some of the work that you guys have done recently that we wanted to have you on to discuss. And the timing of this conversation, when we booked this interview, we had no idea that the news was going to come out of Germany, that the parliament there has just agreed to decriminalize possession of child pornography, which is essentially, for people that don't know what that'll really mean, other than, it's disgusting, scummy, and everything else, and evil if you have a soul. But from a legal standpoint, this is like the Lawrence v. Texas of pedophilia there. All right. So first you decriminalize sodomy, which implies, therefore, if something that used to be criminalized for hundreds of years no longer is, that implies that the values have changed and now it's to be promoted instead. And that's what led to the redefinition of marriage and all the other rainbow jihad stuff we see now. That's what this is. Okay, because they'll tell you, oh, we're not promoting pedophilia or anything of that nature, but this is the first step to that process. Okay, and that's right in line with a lot of the stuff that you guys were investigating or have been investigating at the Daily Wire or Daily Caller, I should say, specifically with something called WPATH. So let's start there. What is WPATH?
The WPATH is the World Professional Association of Transgender Health. And what people need to understand is that they are a medical organization that writes guidance, clinical guidance, that is then utilized in a range of ways. It's utilized by governments, by insurance companies, by gender clinics. Yeah, even sometimes you'll find in school guidance when they're talking about gender ideology. What they produce is used to promote transgender ideology, promote transgender medicine, and ultimately it's what insurance companies use to decide whether or not a child who's 13 or 14 meets the criteria to get her breasts removed.
So this is an opportunity to provide, is it a good summation to say this is basically how they legitimize medically, scientifically mutilating children, so that they can call it something other than that, say science, medicine, healthcare, etc.
Correct. They present themselves as an evidence-based medicine organization, and they are the experts on transgender health. And so then other places for example, HHS has a 2-sheet document on gender health care for kids, and they cite the WPATH standards of care. Where I'm from in Pennsylvania, in their state health insurance plan, they have a section that says gender affirming care, and they utilize these guidelines from WPATH to delineate when a child would or would not have their say, again, use the example of a double mastectomy or their puberty blockers or their hormones reimbursed by the taxpayers.
I've been in this business full time for 18 years now. I've been on the front lines of a lot of these culture war fights, yet I've never heard the name WPATH until earlier this year. So how is that possible? Where did these people come from? How have they garnered so much of a foothold of influence within the institutions the spirit of the age occupies so quickly? Or maybe it hasn't been quickly, it's just been right under our noses and we didn't see it.
It's interesting when I was doing research for these pieces that we wrote. I personally was learning more about the history and the origins of transgender ideology and how it stems all the way back to the 1960s when there was a transgender clinic at Johns Hopkins University. And that clinic got shut down in 1979, which is when WPATH was formed under a different name, but this organization's been around for a long time, since 1979. They've progressed and they've revised their medical guidance throughout the years. I think around, I'd say the 2010s is when this really, for whatever reason, this ideology really took hold and the influence really grew. I believe they had around 4,000 members in 2022 when the Standards of Care, which is their most recent guidance, were published, which if you think about it, that's really not a lot of people. But to your point, they absolutely have an undue amount of influence and power given their size.
It sounds like, therefore, they have been planting these seeds for decades, and then just kind of came into the light when it appeared that they had enough of a beachhead established in the culture, enough of a mainstream acceptance that they can now do this out in the open.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess that there was an opportunity and the opportunity was taken. I mean, I know for myself, I really didn't really know much about the transgender ideology up until like 2 or 3 years ago. I'd always personally thought it was something that was kind of fringe. And then when I started doing some research in Pennsylvania, specifically with Rachel Levin, I saw how in 2015 in Pennsylvania, there was kind of this sweeping takeover and this sweeping, putting this ideology into every different sect of Pennsylvania government. And I think we're seeing that now happen federally, and that all the basis for a lot of this and a lot of what was being put out there was WPATH. And the Cass Review, which was a report that recently came out from England, they actually showed how most of the other organizations who provide guidance, medical guidance for transgender medicine, a lot of them have actually built their own medical guidance on WPATH's guidance. So they really are, in my personal opinion, the linchpin of the entire industry. Do we know, is there any other bureaucratic, professional, pediatric work to counter this where, if it weren't for, let's say you're going to a physician or anybody who doesn't know who a Meg Brock is, doesn't read the Daily Caller, thinks Steve Deace is a Nazi racist, okay? So they're not in our ecosystem at all. All right, they're just in the mainstream corporate healthcare ecosystem. And is there within that habitat, is there anything actively pushing back on this at all, saying, hey, we're not sure this data is good, or do you have to be in you and I's habitat in order to get the counter narrative to this? Well, I think what's happening in Europe is really interesting. So like I had mentioned, if people wanted something to point to, they can go look up the Cass Review. It's this long report that was commissioned by the NHS in England, so the National Healthcare Service there, not a right-wing outlet by any estimation, and that countries like, for example, England, Scotland, and many other European countries are actually taking steps to restrict or stop providing things like puberty blockers to kids. So the fact that that's going on in Europe, that they're really pausing the brakes because the evidence for all of this has been questioned, as it should be, and not shown to be very strong, and while having these horrible implications for kids, but yet the U.S. continues to just move full steam ahead without even acknowledging what's going on over in Europe. You mentioned they claim to be an evidence-based enterprise. Let's look at their evidence. Where does it come from? What do they claim as evidence? What do we know about the founders and their origin? Is it similar to if you were to dig into Alfred Kinsey, for example, who basically created modern sex ed in the government schools before Planned Parenthood took it over, and the guy basically should have probably been locked up for what he was actually doing in real time back in the day, rather than accredited. So who are these people, and what's their evidence? Yeah, well, I mean, I think just starting with the question about evidence, one of the things that we found was one of the co-chairs of this educational wing of WPATH, which is where all these recordings came from, actually said that they had commissioned a study trying to find evidence that showed that these gender sex change hormones, cross-sex hormones, had a strong correlation with a positive health outcome. So if you hear or listen to any detransitioners, a lot of times they'll say what they or their parents were told at the doctor was, well, do you want a dead daughter or an alive son? Mm-hmm. So this idea that, we're going to start, the reason we're starting this is because we want your child to have a mental health improvement. We don't want them to commit suicide. So these parents are really coerced into into believing this narrative. But in these tapes, one of the leadership even said like that their own study did not show a high level of evidence to support that these hormones were making a really positive impact. So and when you have the leadership of an organization saying that, I think you have to wonder then why isn't there maybe at least a pause, particularly for kids, when we're seeing this pause happening in other places.
You mentioned the footage. You read my mind. I wanted to go there next anyway. So you guys over at the Daily Caller have put together this website. WPathTapes.com is the website. WPathTapes.com if you guys want to go and see a lot of the work that Megan and those she's working with at the Daily Caller have done over there. WPathTapes.com is the site. Now, when you go there, you're going to see on the site right at the top, this footage was not meant to be seen by the public. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so how we obtained this footage is that we submitted a series of public records requests to people who had written the clinical guidance that WPATH provides. And through those requests, we actually found a Dropbox folder, which contained almost 30 hours of recordings from a private educational event that WPATH had hosted in September of 2022. So to understand how private these recordings were meant to be, in order to be a part of this education event where you're seeking, it's for clinicians seeking a certificate in transgender health. They had to be a WPATH member in good standing for 2 years and a licensed clinician. So there was a long 2-year period that you had to be a member to even have access to these recordings. So through that public records request, we found all of these recordings. We went through, I listened to almost 30 hours of this, which I felt like I was taking one for the team there, listening to some of this stuff. And we tried to outline it the best we could to make it digestible and easy to understand.
You mentioned taking one for the team. Describe some of what you heard, what you saw, and what words would you use to describe it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big overview, what we heard is we heard a lot of acknowledgement of the things that we don't know, right? One of the segments that really stood out to me was talking about puberty blockers in kids. And this expert who was giving this presentation says, hey, we don't really know the impact on brain development. Hey, we know that this is disrupting the calcium stores. When you're going through puberty is a time where your bones are collecting calcium that you need later in life so you don't develop osteoporosis. He said, we know it's impacting that. Talking about fertility, there was a discussion that, hey, even if one of the things they'll recommend is that, before you do puberty blockers or before you give cross-sex hormones to kids, that you have a conversation about fertility preservation. Well, in this one recording, the doctor said, we don't even know if we take these eggs from little girls who are 10 or 11 years old, which is when you would consider blocking their puberty. We don't even know if those eggs would be fertile because they haven't developed or matured. But the one clip in that really stood out to me was talking about how they need to make sure they give the little boys as much time as possible to grow genital tissue so they have enough genital tissue if they want to get surgery later in life. And the phrase growing their vagina was used, which I know that's a bit explicit, but it's quite shocking to think I have a 10-year-old son and I can't imagine thinking about him in that way or any child in that way.
This is Island of Dr. Moreau stuff. What final question, can you think of a time throughout history, Meg, where wanting to do medical, scientific experiments and trainings for things that you will eventually do on people and wanting to make them completely secret led to a good outcome in the end? Can you think of a time where that occurred?
No, I can't offhand think of any, no. No, I can't. I can think of a lot of, I think that when we even get to the basic of what the scientific method is, I mean, we've seen science upended. I know in your show, you guys have talked about this a lot over the past few years, but the whole premise of science is that you have a question and you want to see if the evidence supports your hypothesis, not the other way around. So I think that it's very shaky ground to say the least.
Yeah. I mean, when you have research, observation are kind of inherent to the scientific method, doing things in the cover of darkness and not wanting people to see what it is that you're doing kind of would seem to go against that, unless maybe what you're doing isn't science, but something else. All right. So Meg, what's next on this? I'm sure you guys are continuing to work on this story. What's next?
Yeah, so there's actually, if you go into the WPATH tapes, we have a bit of an umbrella piece, and then we have 7 different articles. So what we did is we really grouped kind of did like a thematic overview of what was said in these presentations. So you can learn more about what was said about consent, what was said about fertility, what was said about the experimental nature of cross-sex drugs. So I would encourage people to go ahead and read those articles, read the clips. And then we also published for the public to have the full, almost 25 hours of full recordings. So people can see for themselves and just better understand what's going on. And even though it is difficult to talk about sometimes because some of it's quite gruesome, but I do think it's important, because if we don't understand what we're dealing with, we're not going to be able to push back on it.
Amen. You guys have done phenomenal work, Lord's work. Thank you very much. Keep it up. We appreciate it.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on.
You bet. Again, wpathtapes.com is where you want to go. That's wpathtapes.com. Gentlemen, your thoughts?
There's a fantastically played out scene in Band of Brothers when they come across the first discovery of a Nazi death camp, and just the, oh my God, what have we all collectively done? Oh, that reaction there should be the same as to this, and the punishments be the same. I keep thinking of, Steve, your use of the noose meme after a fair trial. Of course, it applies to this as well. This is Mengele stuff, and if we can't see that, we need to get uncomfortable fast.
Harkening back to the first segment, how can God be good without a hell? That's what we're kind of talking about here. How is it possible for God to be good without a hell? There has to be punishment for this type of thing that we're talking about. If not in this life, then in the next. There has to be a punishment for that. And going back to one of the things that Meg kind of ended on, that conversation on, and trying to keep some sort of hope of reproduction alive in the future. Mm-hmm. If you're getting to the point, like, how seared is the conscience when you're getting to the point where you're thinking about, oh, we have to grow a vagina or let the vagina grow before we can actually do procedures like this? How seared is your conscience? Think about all of the things, all of the barriers in your mind that you had to break down to get to that point. These are just incredibly evil people that we're talking about.
And the kind of evil people that won't stop themselves.
No.
Nope. Hour 2 is next. All right, back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Steve Deace here with Aaron McIntyre, Todders, and all of you. And you can let us know who you are and what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. Just email us, steve@stevedeace.com, DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on Twitter, Getter, Instagram, and TikTok. If you listen to the podcast version, thank you. If you wouldn't mind, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you podcast. Thanks to all of you who have. Also, make sure if you're a podcaster to hit subscribe, or if you're on iTunes, follow. And that way, every time we do a brand new episode, it will show up in your feed every single time. And we appreciate all of you who have done that as well. I was just seeing in the Maryland Senate race, Larry Hogan has put up his very first ad as the former Republican governor of Maryland. Can you guess what his very first ad says? His very first TV
the kids?
Ad. Yes. That is literally what his very first TV ad says.
F them kids?
Yep. His very first TV ad is, I will vote, he even goes so far as to say, I'll vote to codify Roe versus Wade into federal law. I just...
Probably just giving the people what they want.
Oh, I'm sure that he is. The best we can do in a blue state, though. Best demon we can get in a blue state, Steve. Literally, that's demonic. I'm not voting for demonic. No one should. Shouldn't vote for demonic. Shouldn't have to say that. That's bad. Murder's pretty bad. Therefore, voting for murder would be...
bad.
That would be bad. Do you think only Democrat baby murderers are in hell? Do you think there's any Republican baby murderers in hell?
Couple of times.
Just the Democrat baby murderers go to hell? Is that what it is? How about when the Republican kills the kid? Is the kid less dead? Like, is the kid like, surprise! It was just the Republican. I mean, I'm still like 20% here. Is that how it works?
No.
No? Okay. So Larry Hogan is just another reminder that it's the killing is going to stop from people like us. And that's why we're partnered not with Larry Hogan, but a group like Preborn. Because they get that. They understand that this is a ministry, so they behave like one. There is truth, and then there is grace for those who accept the truth. There is the truth that they confront mothers with who are thinking of murdering their child. They confront them with the truth that there's a heartbeat there, a second heartbeat, that they're not a unique person. The only person in human history had two distinct heartbeats. No, that's a separate person. And over the years, a majority of the time, women, when they hear that heartbeat, will not go through with killing their child. That is then when the grace is offered and extended. When the truth is accepted, grace is extended. And they understand that these women are in perilous positions, so they're there for them both before and after the baby, everything from counseling to help with diapers, everything you can imagine. All of this, by the way, both the truth and the grace, all of it free of charge. And it's a lot less expensive than the amount, because if you think Larry Hogan's like, kill the babies but stop the deep state, there's a word for you, moron. Anybody that's going to vote to kill a kid is going to vote to kill your bank account and your prosperity and your border and everything else. That's been proven. So it'll cost you your soul and even more printed money we can't afford to vote for Larry Hogan. It'll cost you a lot less to support an organization that will do a lot better and a lot more good work in one day than Larry Hogan would do in 20 years in the Senate. Make the tax-deductible donation today. Just $28 for one of those ultrasounds. Can you find a better use of $28 today? If you can, spend it there. If not, give it to Preborn. Preborn.com/Steve is where to go. That's the website, preborn.com/Steve. Again, go to preborn.com/Steve. All right, let's get into some idolatry or not. Are you guys ready for this?
Let's go.
What you're about to watch, I know the segment's titled Idolatry or Not, right? That's always the logo Aaron throws up there is Idolatry or Not, okay?
I just feel like
I forgot to throw up the logo. Hang on 1 second.
Oh, and that was not like a passive-aggressive reminder, but thank you.
Just seems like that's the subtitle of your show now. So
well, it kind of is.
There we go.
There it is.
All righteousness has been fulfilled.
Thank you. This clip, we're not wrestling with whether or not it is idolatry. Okay, but I knew it was a clip we had to discuss, and I wasn't sure where else to put it on the show, because it just feels like it belongs here. I can't quite articulate why I think it belongs here, but I'm reminded of the classic definition, Supreme Court definition of obscenity. I can't define it, but I know what it is when I see it, right? All right. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't quite define or quantify for you why it belongs in this segment. I just know that it does. And it merits the three of us discussing this with this audience. Okay? So before we go any further, I think we just need to watch the clip and then let the conversation go wherever it goes after the clip concludes.
Yes.
All right? This is from the Babylon Bee. Watch this.
Thank you all for meeting with me. You're all doing some wonderful work destroying the world, but I think it's probably time for us to reevaluate.
Yeah, sorry for the interruption, but I think we're in the wrong meeting. We're not here to destroy the world. We're here to save it. You see, we are some of the leading leaders of liberal causes, and I'm with the Human Rights Campaign, who focus on LGBTQ+ and trans rights. You see, I have the equal sign to let you know that I'm a good person.
Oh, excuse me, women's reproductive rights. climate.
Free Palestine. Open borders.
I misspoke before. You guys are not destroying the world, okay? You are saving the world.
Hey, whoa, what's up with those scare quotes?
Pretty sure I didn't use scare quotes when I said saving the world. The important thing to keep in mind is that there's a big election coming up, and we're all on the same page, okay? So if we want Biden to win, he needs to win in order for us to save the world. If we want Biden to win, you folks, how can I say this? You might need to tone it down just.
Tone down what?
Oh, that's a good question. You're women's reproductive rights, right? Okay. Excellent branding, by the way. It's much easier on the ears than baby murder. So kudos to you on that one. But opposing any restrictions all the way through to the 9th month, I mean, you see how you're kind of tipping your hand, right? Makes people think, wait, maybe they actually want to kill babies. And we do, obviously.
No, we don't.
Oh.
No, we don't. We don't.
Right. We don't. But you see how it can kind of look that way. So that's all I'm saying. Let's tone it down. And immigration. Clearly, we don't want a completely open border that undermines any sense of national sovereignty, driving down wages for the working class and overtaxing the welfare state. So let's go a bit easy there, too. I mean, why not something like this? Why not something like, diversity is our...
Are you trying to say diversity is our strength?
Yes! How do you say that without laughing? Oh my gosh. I can't even get through it. This is head and moi. My sides. My goodness. Okay, what about you? Pro-Palestine. You are, I'm going to say this. You're kind of coming across like you just want to wipe Israel off the map and kill all the Jews.
We do want to wipe Israel off the map and kill all the Jews.
Of course, yes. And that's awesome. I'm all for that. I love that. But you need to pretend like you don't want to wipe Israel off the map and kill all the Jews.
Why?
Excuse me?
I mean, we're pretty clear in our position, and most young people and everyone on college campuses, and half the Democratic Party, of course, still support us.
Yeah, it's cool now.
You may have a point there. You might be the only person in here that can be as evil as you want to be and get away with it. All right, still, let's think about tactics. Okay, do you think that occupying bridges and blocking traffic is somehow winning people over to your cause?
Yeah, and making people hate us by blocking traffic is our thing. He's stealing our thing!
You're not stealing your thing. You must die. We will kill you all!
See, this is what I'm talking about. I mean, okay, I love the homicidal thing that you got going on there. I really dig it, okay? But maybe market it just a little bit differently. Like the serial killer that everyone thinks is such a sweet guy, He's got 27 bodies in the basement, but he's like, coaching Little League. That's what I want. Be that guy.
Death to America.
The funny thing is, you don't even look Middle Eastern. Am I wrong, people? Am I wrong?
I'm not. I actually grew up on Long Island, but my parents sent me to college. Death to America.
HRC guy, you have been going over the top as well.
Well, it's important for us, they, them, to be accepted just like everyone else.
Yes, of course. And convincing people that they're intolerant for not wanting men to get naked in women's locker rooms. I guess that's genius. I mean, come on, it's next level stuff. All right, but insisting that your children be mutilated. I mean, come on, let's turn people off, you guys. I mean, not everyone, obviously, but until the election, can we just all pretend for a few months not to be crazy, lunatic, homicidal extremists?
No, it's my body, Donald J. Trump.
You will obey me. Sorry. Glad we're all on the same page, though. So, how do you do it? When I do evil stuff, it seems like nobody likes me. When you do it, everyone finds you sympathetic.
Well, see, my people are oppressed victims. So we can rape, murder, and call for genocide, and it's pretty much totally justified.
Well done, Ahmed. Well done.
All right, let's take a couple seconds. I want to let you guys gather your thoughts about what you just saw. All right? And I'll tell you about our friends over at Relief Factor. if you have been struggling with chronic pain and you're thinking, it's just going to be this way, I've tried everything. Well, have you tried this? Now, no guarantees. All right, no guarantees. But the Relief Factor could be what you have been looking for. It's a drug-free supplement created by physicians who can prescribe drugs, but they also realize that a lot of times they were just prescribing drugs that would mask the pain and might even come with their own side effects, drowsiness, some other things as well. So what if there was a drug-free way to go right after the inflammation in your joints that is probably the cause of your chronic pain? And that what if answer is Relief Factor. That's where it comes from. Now, over the years, over 1 million people have tried the 3-week quick start, and 100% of the people, didn't get great results, but 70% of them did. And they stuck around with the product long term. So why not see if you don't see a difference in your pain level in 3 weeks or less when you go to relieffactor.com. Again, that's relieffactor.com or 1-800, the number 4RELIEF. Give them a call. Because when you feel the difference, you're going to know it's working. Relieffactor.com is where you want to go. So when I got started in this business, I never thought I would be using, even though the promotion of a biblical worldview has always been the prime directive of this show, I just never thought I'd be openly using the word demonic in everyday analysis. Aaron grew up listening to the show. Todd, you listened to it before you came to work here. Though I used the word pagan all the time to articulate, there needed to be a label to put on. So if this is what a biblical worldview says, what do we call the views that don't have that, right? And sometimes we've often referred to them as liberal or left-wing, even Marxist or communist. Those things, those labels are all accurate, okay? In my view, though, they're not sufficient because they don't fully explain what the origin is. And the origin is a religious impulse. And so traditionally Christianity has looked at religious views outside of what the Bible reveals as God's word to be called pagan. Okay? And so that was the term I put on it for many, many years. In recent years, you guys have heard me on this show, use the term demonic a lot. And I've explained what I think, at least to the best I can, as a amateur, layman wannabe theologian with a podcast, okay? I've explained as best I can what I think is the difference between human sinfulness or forms of idolatry to things that are demonic, right? That human sinfulness, to make it simple, is when we choose to exploit the gifts, the talents, the urges, the desires, the ambitions that God places within us. We exploit them beyond how he says to use them or what to use them for. Demonic is when we actually seek to go against the things that God has given us and made us and provided for us and gifted us with, but to act as an ingrate, to reject them and to accept nihilism instead. So not just exploitation, but a darkness instead. As Chesterton once put it, I could really do an entire show quoting G.K. Chesterton, frankly, but one of his very underrated lines is, when we stop believing in God, we don't believe, it's not that we don't believe in anything, it's that we will believe in everything. And that's what pagan means. I'm literally willing to accept anything else other than this revelation that holds my soul accountable to a holy God. I'll believe anything else, okay? So with all that as the backdrop, I was unsure what to do with this clip. So I put it in this segment because it just seems like something we need to discuss. Because, folks, I'm not kidding you. I don't think this is satire. I think this could really have happened. I mean, yeah, the red makeup and the horns, all that stuff is embellishment, theatrics but I don't know that it's that much different than this. I mean, you even see there where, you see, the devil isn't a god. He's not divine, as we would define it, ascribe it to God. And so therefore, he can't control unbridled human nature. And you can see even there, in that setting, he is struggling to do it. That reminded me of a comedic take on the scene we have in Nefarious, when Nefarious looks at James and says, hate speech, we didn't even come up with that one. You guys did that one all yourself. Sometimes you amaze even us. Meaning your capacity for evil on your own, even without us pushing you, sometimes even blows us away. We're like, well, I guess we're taking the day off, basically. And so is some of you that are from a less charismatic background, maybe you're uncomfortable with language like demonic, all right? And so you love terms like idolatrous and things of that nature because it fits more of your motif, but also would explain the spiritual and religious element to the evil we're seeing being manifested naturally. And there's clearly evidence of that. After all, this segment is called what?
Idolatry.
So we would agree with that.
Yeah.
And some of you can maybe come from a more charismatic background. You're like, that's the devil. That's the devil. You're probably right about that. And so which is it? Who's driving the train here on the highway to hell? Is it direct demonic influence, or is it man, a generation, an era, a culture that has rejected God, and therefore there is nothing to restrain its sinful nature whatsoever as it chases after, as Chesterton said, everything else, literally everything else? The answer, I think, is yes. So let's discuss who wants to go first.
Well, I think this is perfectly placed here because of the question you started off the show with. Is this really satire? And the answer increasingly is no. And they point this out about themselves all the time when they repost something there at the Babylon Bee that turns out to be true. All of this idol worship on multiple fronts that you see going on there, that again, it is heinous. To the point where Steve said, we're talking about things now that I wasn't talking about at the beginning of my career. Well, how did we get here? They have their idols, but here's my main point. They can only have those idols to the extent that they have them. And the only people perhaps, and the most people, not the only, the people most aggressively attacking it are a comedy outfit like the Babylon Bee on some days. Mm-hmm. That can only happen if our idols, the churches, the normies, conservatives, are as big or bigger than those. Those are the idol of comfort that I'm always talking about. This isn't possible otherwise, folks. Don't lie to yourself.
That is so cash money. I posted this morning in my daily Bible reading in this Bible in a year. I'm in the Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, just started Ezekiel. And I got to tell you, man, this will blow your mind. If you've not read this stuff in a while, you never hear what's in the only parts of Isaiah you hear in a church are the specific optimistic messianic verses that are during Christmas time. Yeah. The rest of that book you do not hear. Lamentations, you probably couldn't even spell that. Jeremiah 29:11 taken completely out of context from the rest of that book. Ezekiel, I stopped counting. Like, I would feel concerned about like turning on the voice reader and listening to the audio book of Ezekiel if I had little kids at home. The amount of times the word whore is used, okay, or a reference to rape, a reference to adultery, a reference to getting gangbanged and having a train run on you, a reference to ejaculation. I mean, this is like pretty blunt, man, describing the level of spiritual and moral whoring that is going on among the Jewish people. It's really blunt, not pulling any punches at all. And I'm just like, this just doesn't get preached in any of our churches at all. Instead, you're fed the idol of this is the eternal guide to being perpetually nice and nothing more, nothing. We're the sisters of perpetual niceness. And we don't even know what a sister is anymore, by the way, because that would, of course, offend people. So we're the beings of perpetual niceness. That's all we are anymore, with pleated khakis and sweater vests.
Who else is as aggressive as the comedy outfit, the Babylon Bee, on this front?
I guarantee
the church.
I guarantee
the Republicans.
Aaron, if you just read and watched the best that Babylon Bee put out every week on a Sunday morning, you'd get more Bible, better exegesis and hermeneutics than you would going and attending physically most American churches, regardless of denominational alignment.
So that video would have been great satire 20 or 50 years ago because it would have challenged its intended audience's beliefs about what was actually going on. Now, I don't actually think, I mean, it's very clever, it's very well done, but if you examine this a little bit closely, you'll find that it's not exactly accurate as far as what's going on right now. This is the meta-spiritual version of what you were just talking about last week, what you warned about 10 or 15 years ago, and others did as well, about the personhood argument of humanity. When does a life begin? Mm-hmm. We have to win that argument, or else eventually we're going to have people that come right out and say, yes, it is murder, and we're fine with it. Like Bill Maher did just a few weeks ago. At least he's honest. Same thing with the so-called homo marriage debate. This is not really a debate about marriage. It never was 20 years ago. It was a debate about gender. If you undefine marriage, eventually you're going to undefine gender. Todd, what were you telling me about this morning? A school district in Michigan is now banning all pronouns?
The use of term boy and girl. I think it's Michigan, but this is happening.
There it is. So what you just saw in that video was a meta-spiritual version of two very specific examples that I cited for you. Meaning, the camel's nose was under the tent when we were having these debates, really with its roots. We want to say the roots were in the sexual revolution of the 60s. You could predate that even further if you wanted to, but we'll say in the 60s. The camel got its nose under the tent then. By and large, the churches failed for the last, going on 2 generations to sufficiently act as the vanguard, spiritually, of this nation. Once the camel got its nose under the tent, all of these pretty little lies that we told ourselves collectively as a culture, whether it's on sexuality, whether it's on marriage, whether it's the tone of our voice when we're witnessing, whether it's the tone of our voice when we are saying what we believe is true. The niceness, as you just said, Steve. Those pretty little lies we told ourselves culturally, those really began in the church. I think what a better version of this would be nowadays is Satan sitting there and saying, actually, yes, it's time for the flex. It's time to tell people you lost. That's actually what nefarious does.
That's what a nefarious plot the book is.
So yeah. This was good satire 20, 50, maybe 100 years ago. But now, it's not really accurate in terms of what's going on. The forces of hell are just flexing. We got the nose under the tent. We got the head under the tent. We got the humps under the tent. Now our tail is under the tent. The tent is ours now.
By the way, quick shout out to my buddy Siaka Massaquoi, who is the actor in there that is the human rights campaign activist, the first guy to speak to the devil there. So props to him. Good to see he's not backing away after, they're trying to pin January 6th on him as well. So good to see that he is still out there firing shots across the enemy's bow. So good on him for that. But what do you think it means, then, if we're unbridled to the point that even the enemy would be like, hey, slow your roll, bro. And we would be like, no, we're going to do our own thing. What do you think that we're not, there's no roll to slow? Like Aaron just pointed out.
Pedal to the
Ironically, what you just said, as depressing as all this is, because we just got done pointing out this is only possible with the idols in the church are as bigger, what you just said is where the hope is. All the
meaning willful, where the problem, where the solution, basically.
No, all the willful idiots out there that are pushing all the buttons may not have any idea what game is afoot. The devil knows what's at stake, and he knows he doesn't have this thing won.
See,
that's where there's hope, and the devil hates it, but he knows it.
Are we flexing because we're victorious, or are we flexing because we're scared?
Yeah.
That's the debate that I have.
Trying to intimidate you.
Exactly.
I mean, there's two kinds of trash talk. There's the kind you do after you've won the game. And then there's the kind you do because you think you're going to win the game.
What you say about
or you want to
poker.
make them think you're going to win.
That's what you say about poker. He's like, I'm just going to all in. I just intimidate people off the table.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're doing. But honestly, that when you said it the way you said it, The devil knows he's fighting God. He hates God, but he knows it's God and he's not God.
One of my, to use the Babylon Bee devil attribute, scare quotes, one of my favorite moments in a nefarious plot, the book. And I'm surprised I've not been asked about this part of the book more often. I've been asked so many things about this book over the years, but this is one part I've never been asked about. There is a moment in the book where Nefarious admits exactly what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
He admits this.
Yeah.
That it really isn't over. Okay.
I've read the book a couple of times.
Yeah, you have. But here's what he does, though. He dares you to stop reading the book.
Yeah.
Get on your knees. Pray and repent. Do it right now, he says. I dare you. You won't, though. He literally throws the solution in your face.
All in.
He goes all in, shows his hand. Yes. Shows you that he doesn't have pocket aces. He's not even holding big slick.
I'm not God.
He's got like a pair of jacks. It's a good hand.
Yeah.
But it's a very beatable hand. Okay. Maybe a pair of nines.
Yes.
Okay. It's a very good hand, but it's not an unbeatable hand. He is so confident though that you won't dare play it out. And let's at least get to the flop. Yeah, I'm sitting with a queen in the hole. Maybe I'll flop a queen and I'll come over the top rope. That you'll just fold without even daring to play it out.
He's right.
That he knows he can show you his hand, tell you to your face it's not the best hand, tell you to your face it's not the eternally undefeated hand, and it won't make a difference. And then tell you how you could acquire he'll tell you how you could acquire the hand that would beat him. You won't do it.
Because we're cipher. Ignorance is bliss.
And I think about that as I know during the break, I'm going to see a bunch of quote-unquote right-wingers as I just crushed Larry Hogan as a baby murderer on an X a few minutes ago. I will have a bunch of quote-unquote right-wingers in my feed saying, best we can do in a blue state, got to vote for him. And that's that's why Nefarious knows he can do that. Because he knows you. He knows you won't. He knows you don't want to repent. He knows. He knows that the only beings on this earth that want to rebel against God even more than he does, that want to rule in God's place even more than he does, is us. He knows that. And that's why the people are the problem. Folks, I absolutely love Balance of Nature. As I've been telling you, I'm trying to lose the last 40 plus pounds that I've had to lose for over 10 years, when I had to lose like almost 150 pounds and I lost 100. And I just never could get myself to get to that last stage. So every year I just kind of go back and forth in this 25, 30 pound range. And this year I'm like, nope, time to hit in my 50s now. That last 40 some odd pounds has got to come off. I'm about halfway there. And you realize too, man, how expensive healthy eating is right now. How expensive all eating is. This is where Balance of Nature comes in. It's been a big part of my regimen this year. It comes with 31 different kinds of produce in their fruits and vegetables capsules. 31. You couldn't possibly eat that much produce in a day if you tried. Probably couldn't afford it if you wanted to. All right. So a great way to fill a huge gap in a lot of our nutrition. Let's face it, the healthier the food, the more expensive it is. Produce, the more whole food, natural food, the more expensive it is. So this is why you want the benefits, but also the convenience that comes with Balance of Nature. So when you go to balanceofnature.com, you'll get 35% off plus $10 off any additional sets with your first order as a preferred customer by using my discount code DACE. All right. So that's limited to 5 sets though. Okay. So you're still going to save a ton of money while getting the fruits and vegetables you need in your daily diet. Go to balanceofnature.com. Use the promo code DACE for the big discount, 35% off. Balanceofnature.com. Use the promo code DACE at balanceofnature.com. Promo code DACE for 35% off. So our kitchen, just really quick on this same front, our kitchen's getting updated right now. This is my anniversary / Mother's Day / birthday gift for the wife this year. And We're almost done. She sends, just I'm leaving yesterday though, she sends me a text, hey, kitchen's all torn up. There's no way you're getting anything out of there for the next few hours. So I got to eat lunch. Okay. So I'm trying to think, all right, because I was going to go home and eat. What do I do? Want to get I'm doing this 75 hard. I want to do the healthiest thing I can do. And I'm like, well, Chick-fil-A's on the way home. Grilled nuggets, pretty high in protein, going to be pretty low in carbs, and I love the sugar-free lemonade. So I'll go get that in a combo. Okay. Folks, I went to Chick-fil-A yesterday, got the grilled nugget combo with a sugar-free lemonade. It was almost $15. What? It was almost $15. Blew my mind. Almost $15. Someone texted me they went to McDonald's yesterday, got a McChicken, which when you and I were growing up was like on the 75-cent menu.
I know.
Okay. They got a McChicken and a small fry. $7. I mean, wow. So, all right, let's get to some Pop Culture Tuesday. This is where we look at the intersection of what's trending right now in pop culture and also what we believe as conservatives. And I want to talk about the guy who right now well, I guess you have to throw Caitlin Clark in there somewhere. Let's say he's the most popular male athlete in America right now because his jersey's selling out. Okay. He's certainly the most talked about one, and it continues to be Harrison Butker as we go into week 3 now of Harrison Butker making all the right enemies, the all-pro kicker for the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs.
I believe it was just last weekend, actually.
Was it just last week? Yeah, but he had given other talks.
Oh, yeah.
There's another one that's come out now where he talked about the jab. Oh, it was from last
Georgia
year?
Tech. Okay. Oh, well, yeah, I guess that, I don't know when that interview talking about the COVID jab was from.
No, but this actually kind of adds to his credibility, though. The idea that the guy just got something stuck in his craw at one particular commencement and decided to speak up. No. He's actually been rattling cages here and smashing shibboleths for the last couple of years, basically, is what we're finding out, right? Okay.
He's basically me while kicking on a pro football team.
We used to call these people, by the way, men. If you're wondering, what is this? We used to call them men. But it got me to thinking as I am watching, I'm seeing people on ESPN oppose each other on what he is saying, and we're supposedly having a presidential election this year. And we've talked about this before. Does it feel to you like we are having an election?
No.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. Aaron, what about you?
No.
It doesn't, does it? We're not having dueling campaign stops where both Republican and Democrat candidates are visiting a coal mine in Pennsylvania, okay, on the same day, a few hours apart, and one's giving a speech at the NAACP, although I guess Biden recently tried to do that, and the other guy is speaking to national religious broadcasters on the same, the stuff that we're normally accustomed to, the organic stuff that a campaign creates on a daily basis to respond and react to. Not happening by and large.
We haven't had that since the order was put out to install Biden. I mean, that's the last time I remember this show full on talking about candidates like you had always done, and we were dissecting, Pete Buttigieg, real or not, and stuff like that. It hasn't. I mean, we haven't done it for real since then.
And one of the things I think it's pretty clear that even though it's still like we act like the 2022 election didn't happen.
Which one?
Exactly. So this idea that there is a level of unpopularity Democrats will reach that Republicans are just going to win organically while offering no contrasting vision at all. Okay? You're kind of like, hey, we're not winning the game, but we're going to run the four corners offense and run out the clock anyway. You run the four corners offense, Dean Smith, when you're up by 20 points. Not when you're either behind or the game is well within reach. You need more points. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So what we're not seeing right now, which is hard to do, it's hard to have a presidential campaign where Donald Trump is your standard bearer. And there's not a daily sifting taking place based on that. You know what I'm saying? Think back to 2016. There were flashpoints every day.
Oh, yeah.
To the point that we were like, at the time, I was like, I think even this guy might be too reckless when it comes to too many flashpoints. The flashpoints were everywhere, right? Everywhere, his candidacy compelled you to choose ye this day where you were at, one way or the other, right? And ended up winning. Now it's like, now Trump's like, hey, vote the way you want on the FISA program they tried to use to impeach me and coup against me. Do what you want, all right? He's endorsing against Freedom Caucus. He's endorsing rhinos for speaker in South Carolina, okay? Tim Scott's leading the Veep stakes who thought Trump's judicial nominees were racists, okay? And it's literally like Trump is telling anytime someone in his base speaks up or speaks out, this is a fight to... No, it's not. Shut up. Just run out the clock. Get to November the 5th, right? Doesn't that seem to be the strategy?
Yeah.
However, one thing politically has not changed. When elections are about personalities, guys, who wins?
Democrats.
And when elections are about issues, who wins?
Republicans.
Correct. That has been true. And it's going to be true until you prove otherwise, because it hasn't been untrue yet. Hasn't been untrue yet in the modern era. With Harrison Butker here, it dawned on me yesterday. What he's done here, this is a gift. Are you not seeing the sifting taking place right now? And look at the way people are naturally responding. Have you guys seen the amount of conservative women on X, for example, saying, hey, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this?
Highly trained.
Yep. Nothing has been more beneficial to me than being a wife and a mom. I'd trade it all for being a wife and a mom. It's the most important thing I've ever done. In other words, by drawing a sharp contrast with our opponents, Butker is inspiring people not named Harrison Butker to speak out and draw said contrasts. I wanted to say, Daniel and I wanted to say for years, Mexico is sending us drug mules, criminals, and prostitutes. We kind of just didn't think we could say that and win. And then when Trump did that and you could say that and win, we were like, okay. You know what I'm saying? Let's just let it all. Example's been set. We can say this now. Let's just let it rip. Harrison Butker is doing that right now. I'm not entirely sure we understand the gift of what he has done really is politically.
Oh, I know we don't.
Because it's to the point that even Bill Maher now is saying, what did he say that frankly most Americans... Dude, Rachel McAdams, the actress, just said over the weekend, most fulfilling thing I've ever been as a mom. Even Bill Maher is like, I think Trump is a fascist we need to beat. We're not going to do that if we tell people motherhood's bad, guys. We're not going to beat fascist Trump if motherhood's bad. That was literally what he said on his show over the weekend. These are the contrasts you want to draw, to force these conversations, to force it out into the open. You want it? Glenn Youngkin won in Virginia because what was going on at that school, in that school district in Loudoun County, went out into the mainstream. Who was the gentleman that did the work on that at the Daily Wire? I can't remember the executive reporter who first broke that story, but props to him. And then others did other work, but he was like the first to break that story wide open.
Rosiak.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Is it Luke Rosiak?
I think Luke.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
And the Youngkin campaign was at least smart enough to say, hey, grab a surfboard and jump on that issue and amplify it all the more to the point that in the decisive gubernatorial debate, it forced Terry McAuliffe, the Democrat, to say, I don't believe parents should have a say over what their kids get taught in schools. And that election ended that moment right there. It was just a matter of what the margin was going to be. It was over that moment. The contrast was drawn. The lines were drawn. Clarity is our friend here. Fast forward to 2022. Republicans are like, don't run on anything. Don't stand for anything. Rick Scott, not my favorite kind of Republican, but at least he tried to come up with something. Remember he was going to resurrect the contract with America? It was like all Eric Erickson talking points from 2005, but it was better than having no talking points, right? Okay? And McConnell's like, well, no, we're not going to do that at all. We're not going to stand for anything at all. No, not that at all. Okay? And I can barely stand anyway. Have you seen me? All right. Nothing. And what happened? Another blown election. We need contrast to win. We need it. The side of light, you know what light does? Amplifies, illuminates, clarifies. Therefore, when things are more clarified, is that usually better for Light or darkness, guys?
Light.
If things are murkier, I'm not sure, that doesn't make much sense, I don't know, did God really say? Is that better for the light or for the dark? For the dark. What kind of election are we having right now?
Dark.
I mean, Carrie Lake's on her 7th abortion position, okay? No coincidence she's down by double digits, according to, look at the polls! What are we doing here? We need contrasts. Harrison Butker is providing that to us right now. It is a gift. Now, I am confident the Republican Party will not accept it. And frankly, what he articulated, if we're being really honest, so let's do that, many Republicans don't agree with Harrison Butker, by the way. But it is a gift. It is forcing people to reveal themselves. It is clarifying things. Clarity is good. Clarity's our friend. There's a reason why our opponents tend to not have clarity. The conversation we just had with Meg Brock. Well, they did all these, they got all their evidence and research about why we should mutilate kids in secret, and you had to sign agreements that you wouldn't reveal the training and what their evidence was. I mean, why would you not want people to know what your evidence was, why you wanted to operate on children? Is there a good reason why you wouldn't want people to know that?
No.
All the reasons would be bad, very bad. Like, we're going to hang you bad, that bad, after a fair trial, of course. Clarity is good. Harrison Butker, man, this is an assist. This is Gretzky setting up Messier or Yari Curry on the wing, brother. For the easy one-timer into an empty net. Everybody's being made to go on the record now. Everybody's made. By the way, I'm here to. I even hate moms. I'm just here to undo everything you guys believe. All right, duly noted. Thanks. Take yes for an answer. It's a gift. Get you guys' thoughts on this after we talk about realestateagentsitrust.com. Take yes for an answer here too. Because you don't want to get no for an answer at the absolute worst time. It is stressful enough, even in the best of times, buying and or selling a home, but in these unprecedented times, it is even more so. Dare not venture forth into the Let's Go Brandon real estate market without one of these. A real estate agent that you can trust. You're going to find them where the name says it all. Realestateagentsitrust.com is where you want to go. The best sellers from your markets or the markets you want to get to. They have been vetted before they're recommended to you, and a lot of times they're from right here in the Blaze audience, so you guys have that in common from a value system standpoint. All right, again, realestateagentsitrust.com is where you want to go. Head over there now before you get into this real estate market, the most expensive one in American history. Realestateagentsitrust.com. Gentlemen, your thoughts?
Well, just like I said, like the Babylon Bee can't be the tip of the spear in this, and if it is, that means the idols on our side are as big or bigger. The same here. It's a problem that a NFL football kicker is the tip of the spear on this thing. And that actually plays out, and I said a version of this last week, it is really good that people are responding by buying jerseys. But that goes hand in hand with why Harrison Butker's and this conversation has been elevated. It's only, people do say stuff like this quite frequently. People are drawn to this and then to buying the jerseys because of the NFL factor. But buying these jerseys can't solve this problem. Just like only NFL players saying stuff like this can't solve this problem. We have got to expand our points of attack. That is the real problem with all of this.
Steve, you said Butker was doing something. I think it started with the word "I." This is what he accomplished with his speech. It was like inspired. Is that ringing a bell? Inspired. He was inspiring people. There's not enough of that, like in the good ways. On the other side, we just spent a half an hour talking about a Babylon Bee skit about, the devil inspiring his followers.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the side of the good, true, and beautiful, my question or concern is, are there just not enough people who feel morally equipped, who feel like it's necessary to actually inspire individuals? whether that's in the political realm or the cultural realm. There's just a lack of inspiration systemically amongst the side of the people who are not on the left. That, of course, we're going to go back to the church every single time. But my concern is how much of that is people who do not want to be inspired. I think there's a little bit of that as well.
You bet there is.
And that would be turn out the lights territory by that point. But, ending on a good note, Harrison Butker proved that there are a lot of people who are more than happy to actually be inspired and to inspire others as well.
There's still a remnant, brother. If we just sound the shofar, that is for sure. And Harrison Butker did. Romans 8:28.